Food is life. Food is love and happiness. It is rich in culture and tradition. Our relationship with it is universal. But most of us don't know where our food comes from. I didn't either. Believe me, in my years of eating, never once did I consider that my choices would have an impact on anything other than my weight. We eat food for ourselves, right? We eat to nourish ourselves. Nowhere on the menu is there an indication that this burger I'm about to have is contributing to climate change. That my favorite chocolate is a result of child labor. That my love for chai is contributing to biodiversity loss. These are issues difficult for most of us urban people to consider. For us urban people, food seems to magically appear at supermarkets or thelawalas, and we have access to it 24/7. But the journey of our food from plough to plate is quite complicated. Our food system is facing a lot of limitations. Let me tell you about 4 of them. 1 out of 3 people is suffering from malnutrition. Half of the world is stuffed, and the other half starved. The increase in consumption of processed food has had an impact on our health and health of the environment. The number of people who are suffering from heart diseases and type 2 diabetes has increased. There has been an increase in the global production of greenhouse gases due to the chemical inputs and the way we are growing animals. As a result, we're eating food that is less diverse. Majority of what we eat comes from 12 plants and 5 animals. 1/3 of all the food we produce is wasted. Our natural resources are under pressure. Water is polluted, and the sources that we have are running dry. 33% of the soil is degraded. Biodiversity is threatened. A lot of the plant species and animal species are endangered. This is a direct result of what we choose to put on our plates. My farming experience has shown me that nature works as a whole, not in parts or compartments. That all the elements of the food system intersect and are interconnected. And so, like a Rubik's Cube, when you change one factor, the other gets affected as well. The way we eat today and the way we farm today has changed more in the last 70 years than in the previous 10,000 years. 2 of the most intimate things that we do with food, to grow it and to cook it, we have outsourced. Food production rarely comes to our mind, right, when it comes to our love of food, but it's the first direct thing that we do. The story of our present food goes back to the Second World War. At the end of the Second World War, a lot of chemicals were produced for the war. When peace returned, the chemicals required an alternate market. So the manufacturers, by making minor alterations in nerve agents and explosives, converted them into chemical fertilizers and pesticides. A chemical agronomy was introduced into the farmland around the world. It was seen as that is the only way ahead to solve issues like hunger and poverty. It was believed that this would be the answer for us. 70 years hence, we can see that this one-size-fits-all solution for agriculture has created a series of unintended consequences. We're eating food that is laden with chemicals. In fact, we're eating a cocktail of chemicals, and we don't know what it's doing to our body. And hunger and poverty still loom large. Which brings me to our second point, cooking. I'm sure you're aware that we're also known as the cooking mammals. We are the only species that does fantastic things with food. Look at the diversity of cuisines we've created around the world. Food is taste. Food is nourishment. Food is family and culture. It is religion and identity. And we nourish these connections when we eat well. Cooking, a reflection of our love and affection, is now seen as a drudgery. This too goes back to the Second World War. During the World War, a lot of food products were designed for soldiers. Food that would not go off, that would not develop rancidity, that could stay on the shelf for a long time, and could be cooked with the basic of ingredients. After the war, this food was promoted to us as healthier and better for us. Not cooking was normalized, and now eating out of a box is normal. Introduction of processed food in India has been fairly recent, but we have taken to it with a great gusto. Eating at a fast food joint is seen as a sense of style, as a status symbol, something that we essentially need to do as citizens of the global community. I feel that when we left the farms and moved to the city, we kind of lost our connection with food. And so a lot of misunderstanding was created about what a natural diet consisted. Add to this the pressures of living in a nuclear family, and an industry selling us convenience is the perfect opportunity to swoop in and help us. We're succumbing to this definition of food that sells us the idea of modern living, which basically means we have to discard a culture that depends on locally grown, home-cooked, seasonal food. To give up on a food system that was developed by our ancestors over a millennia for something that comes out of a packet is disastrous, especially when we have such a rich and diverse food culture. This is the kind of mindlessness we need to fight against. We need to recognize the value of what we have before it's repackaged and resold to us. I really wish to emphasize that this kind of food is engineered. Food engineers spend $1 billion to understand your food palate, what you like, what you love, what you crave for, and then design food that you come back for, that you can't stop eating. Add to this the logos, the brands, the $1 billion in advertising, and we don't stand a chance. Food addiction is real. To reduce the gastronomic imagination we have to a mere combination of salt, sugar, and fat is a disaster of epic proportions. In the last 70 years, we have reduced food to a commodity. Food, a sacred element, a giver of life, has been converted into a profit-making venture. And I believe that we really need to consider our food choices. When I think of the present food system, it always makes me wonder, how did we get so wrong about something as fundamental as food? And it reminds me of a line from Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times and the worst of times. We have access to so much information, and yet we remain ignorant about something as basic as food. This is one of my favorite statements, and it has changed my life and how I look at the world. Food is power. Food is a solution to a lot of problems we face. If you eat, you're part of the solution. Since I'm a farmer, I'm going to concentrate on how organic farming and eating organic can be a solution. Phenomenal change has taken place in the last 15 to 20 years. Mass movements around food driven by young people, are popping up everywhere. The fact that I'm invited to speak here today is a reflection of such a change. Do you know what one more change we need to see? We need a master farmer program, just like we have a master chef program. Eating is not a passive act. Eating is a political act. Eating is an ecological act. We need to reconnect with nature. We need to see nature as not wilderness, but something that is a condition for life. Our revolution needs to begin with food. First, by knowing where it comes from, maybe growing a little bit of your own. And second, learning how to cook as an act of self-defense. These solutions might seem very simple, but their impact is profound because it is about taking control of what you put in your body. Gandhi was my inspiration when I wanted to simplify my life and live sustainably. And I've come to realize that what we understand as environmental sustainability is what he considered as Gram Swaraj. He led the way and showed us what simple living was even before we termed coins like sustainability. Organic farming embodies all of these ideas. It's holistic, it's self-sustaining, it conserves the ecosystem. Nothing needs to be brought in, nothing goes to waste. It's about localization, it's about decentralization. It's a traditional way of life. It's something that we have to unlearn and relearn from. Our country is still primarily an agricultural country. We need to see that as a strength. We need to restore the dignity of farmers and farming. We need to make farming financially viable for farmers. We need to compensate them for the ecosystem services they provide. Join me in my journey to share information about food choices that are based on dignity and respect of all living forms. I have been promoting organic farming, a non-violent way of farming that depends on the well-being of all. I believe the most important thing we need to do is to come together, farmers and consumers. We as consumers need to demand wholesome organic food, and we farmers will deliver. We're very ingenious people. In my learning journey, I've come to realize that farmers do understand that the way they're farming today is neither helping them or the environment, that their land is addicted to chemicals, but they don't have a way out. To transition from a chemical system to organic takes anywhere between 3 to 5 years. And therefore, it's about supporting our farmers during this transition. And it's not about one-time support. It's about a consistent support through this process. I believe we need to develop a collective empathy for all the stakeholders in the food system. I believe in hope committed to action. Can we not have an inclusive, just, sustainable food system that satiates everyone's hunger? I absolutely believe we can. There is tremendous power in understanding your journey of your food from plough to plate. There's tremendous power in what you put on your plate. Power you can assert 3 times a day. So what are you waiting for? Ask questions. Get to know the story behind your food and change the world one bite at a time. If I can, anybody can. Thank you very much.